Good evening. Thank you, Ian, and thank you for joining us. Tonight, we've taken our show on the road to talk about an issue that, believe it or not, affects all of us here in Calgary. Marginalized.
People look down on you.
Demonized.
Don't judge me. We're not all the same.
Homeless.
Every day is a struggle.
It may sound simple, but many people don't know what it really means to be homeless. The city of Calgary defines homelessness as those who do not have a permanent residence to which they can return whenever they so choose. In 1992, there were just 447 people who were considered homeless on any given night in our city. By 2008, that number grew to more than 4,000. From 1994 to 2006, Calgary had the fastest growing homeless population in Canada. Shockingly, in 2009 and 2010, it was estimated between 15,000 and 17,000 people had to use a Calgary emergency shelter for at least one night. The Calgary Homeless Foundation estimates that 80% of our city's homeless are short-term shelter users. That means they stay between one night and 6 months. Another 10% are considered episodically homeless, so their stay at a shelter is between 6 months and a year. The remaining 10% are considered chronically homeless. After all those statistics, let's put a face on this for you. The Calgary Homeless Foundation says people from any demographic can experience homelessness. But as Kevin Green tells us, they all have one thing in common.
It's a dark, cold night and seems colder here in the streets and alleys downtown. In a loading dock, identical twin brothers Wayne and Will Brenner take a break from bottle collecting, stopping for a smoke. They're both sober, clean, hardworking, and homeless.
Being out here by yourself, it sucks, it really sucks. It's lonely, nights is really cold. Summertime's a lot better, but still, it's pretty much the same. It just sucks.
The centers that drop in centers that the people stay, they fill fast. So if you don't get there in time, then you're stuck basically outside wandering to stay warm or crawling into a crawl space.
At the next entrance down the alley, we meet Donnie. He's been homeless and on Calgary streets since 1981. When he's drunk or high, he claims it doesn't seem that bad, but right now, he's coming down and the reality of his life is coming into focus.
I can't say it's easy. Every day is a struggle.
A block and a half away, the cops are hassling Newf. That's pretty common since he's a crack user and an occasional dealer. 4 years ago, when he came to Calgary for work, he was clean. He fell in with the wrong crowd, made a bad decision, and now he's got a habit that makes him homeless.
I came from an okay family. My mom was a teacher. My dad worked for the Newfoundland Teachers Association. Right, so I finished high school. I had a okay education. I didn't think I'd be a junkie and a crack addict, you know what I mean?
You'll actually find most homeless people are pretty nice if you stop and chat with them, and you'll also find there isn't one face of homelessness in Calgary. That people who live on the street are as individual, maybe even more individual than the rest of mainstream society. But one thing that the people I talked to over the last several weeks all had in common was they'd rather not be living on the street.
I don't want to tell people when I look for work, I'm living on the street. I don't want to give a shelter's address or a phone number.
I'm missing lots. I have grandkids. I like them to come visit me, but where are they supposed to come visit me?
Miss being with my kids, my family, But normal things that people have, like homes, be able to, just shower, sit back when they want, do what they like.
People look down on you.
Would you like to be clean and off the street?
I'd love to be, That's I don't know. It seems like years away, miles away,
Stop and think of where we are, and remember one thing. You are only one paycheck away from where I am sitting.
Kevin Green is at Olympic Plaza tonight, and he joins us now live. Kevin, what hope is there for homeless people who want to get off the street?
Well, Tara, there are a lot of obstacles, not the least of which just not having a fixed address makes it hard to find a job or hard to apply for any kind of assistance. But there is some hope. Agencies like Exit, In From the Cold, CUPS, and the Homeless Foundation have been working to get a lot of Calgary people off the street. And for the last while, CUPS and the Homeless Foundation have been working with one of the guys you saw in my report, a guy named Donnie. Later in the CTV News, we'll take a look at how that process is coming along.
Okay, Kevin, thank you. Now, we'll be covering the issue of homelessness throughout our show, along, of course, with what else is happening in Calgary and around the world today. Still to come, do you collect Aeroplan points? We have news that may have you returning your seat to the upright position. And just how much does homelessness cost society? Well, it's actually cheaper to just fix the problem. Stay with us. Welcome back. We return now to the issue of homelessness. It's usually a short-term experience, but without intervention or support, it can become a chronic issue for many. Those who are longer term come with a cost not just to their health and well-being, but to society as a whole. Someone without a home requires a multitude of services, and every one of those has a price tag.
So here's all of our information, the address, the call types. We've got a 55-year-old male.
Night after night, call after call. For these paramedics, there is rarely downtime. Tonight, the shift begins with a call to the Salvation Army.
Can you look at me again, please? Open your eyes wide. Good man. I'm going to open this one for you, okay?
This is the City Centre team, a specialized EMS duo that focuses on Calgary's most vulnerable.
A good average would be maybe 3 calls every day related to homelessness specifically.
That's 1,000 calls a year. It could be drug or alcohol abuse, overdoses or seizures, organ failure or heart attack. It all adds up to tens of thousands of dollars per person a year.
What's your name? Harry. Where do you stay, Harry?
At the drop-in center.
Policing costs are added in there too.
Harry, do you mind me asking if you have any kind of mental health diagnosis?
Wow, that was years ago, yeah.
On countless occasions, police are called to respond to situations that really require a different approach.
So people didn't wake up one day and just say, I think I'm going to be homeless, or I think I'm going to get hooked on drugs or alcohol. Usually the mental health comes first, and everything kind of falls apart from there.
This team is called PACT, the Police and Crisis Team, an officer and a mental health clinician seeking out homeless with mental health issues. A surprisingly large percentage of people whose instability prevents them from finding a home and whose homelessness keeps them unstable.
When your release plan from the hospital, because you have nothing else, is to the drop-in center, you're kind of destined to fail.
Okay, so you're going to stand on your good leg.
Every penny that can be saved for housing helps. The DOPE, or Downtown Outreach Addictions Partnership Team, patrols the streets, transporting the vulnerable to shelters or appointments, the kind of calls EMS and police shouldn't be handling.
We figured out in 2009 that we saved the city about $2 million.
This is their intox level, so...
EMS and police calls are just part of the cost. Add in support services like shelters, detox, and caseworkers, and it's a price tag no city can really afford.
You know, you can add it up over a year, and some people will have consumed $70,000, $80,000, $100,000, $200,000 worth of services and remain homeless. So a guy that's been homeless 10 years would have consumed well over $1 million just bouncing around.
Now, Tim Richter of the Calgary Homeless Foundation joins me now, along with Calgary Police Chief Rick Hansen. Thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Tim, we just heard you say there that it can cost $100,000 per person a year easily. It sounds like it would be a whole lot cheaper to fix the problem than to not fix it.
Well, and that's the thing that's so amazing about homelessness, is that it is actually a lot cheaper for us to fix than it is to leave it alone. A lot of these folks that we're seeing that are chronic or episodically homeless, we can house for a fraction, $10,000 a year up to $30,000 a year or less. Which is just a fraction of what it costs to leave them alone.
So what do we do then to change that thinking to put people in a home?
Well, that's what's remarkable. What's happening here in Calgary is that we've really embraced this concept of housing first, move them in an apartment, provide them the wraparound support that they need, and we're the only province in the country that's committed itself to ending homelessness, and the numbers are beginning to really show.
Chief, how big of a shift is this to policing, to be thinking, okay, I'm going to put a constable with a social worker, together they're going to patrol the streets and they're going to look for the people who are most vulnerable and try and shift them where they need the help.
Yeah, and it's a dramatic shift, but it's the only right way to do it, because for too many years they've been cycling through the justice system. So many of them have addictions issues, for instance, or mental health issues that aren't diagnosed, and to actually, process them through a more humanitarian way, gets them out of the justice system and gets them into the treatment programs and into housing where it gets them off the street, and it allows the police to focus on the other issues around crime, and allows the professionals to deal with these people in the correct way.
Because every call that police attend obviously has a price tag. So even if it's a call for a disturbance and it's someone with a mental health issue, that doesn't necessarily need to be attended to by a police officer. It's going to cost the police force to go there.
Oh, when you look at the price of incarceration versus, as Tim was just saying, the price of treatment and putting them in a home, it's far more cost effective, and it's a far better way to deal with them, and it removes so many unnecessary issues for the police to deal with on the street.
Now, Tim, you have said recently that the end of homelessness is a home. It sounds so simple. It's not a shelter. It's not detox.
Right.
How close are we to that in reality now that we're 3 years into this Calgary 7-year plan, 10-year plan, I beg your pardon, to end homelessness?
Well, we've still got a long way to go. I mean, we're steps away from the drop-in center, and they still have 1,100, 1,200 people a night in there, and so I think we're getting at the beginning of the end. We're seeing a lot of success. We've had the fastest growing rate of homelessness of any place in the country for more than a decade. That growth has stopped and begun to turn around. So, I think we've turned a corner, but we've still got a long way to go.
And what happens now? You're a third of the way approximately through the 10-year plan. So what's the next phase?
Well, the next phase is really continuing our focus on chronic and episodically homeless individuals that take up 50 to 60% of the shelter capacity. But we're also going to be working with the police service and other big systems to stop this recycling of people through. We're just handing people between healthcare and jails and police and justice, and we're trying to get in the middle there and get these people into housing, get them the support they need.
Chief, are other cities looking at the way our police force is handling this and thinking this is maybe something we need to do?
I think what we're dealing with here is unique to Calgary. We've got the social agencies all working together. That's really a unique way of looking at it, and I'm not aware of other cities that even have that framework and that foundation established to allow this to happen. So the success is becoming evident in other jurisdictions. I suspect that there will be people coming to look at it, but it can only happen in Calgary right now because of the willingness of those agencies, including the police, to work together to really effectively deal with the issue.
Yeah. Okay. Chief Hansen and Tim Richter, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it.
us, Darryl.
And you're looking at a live shot of the Keep a Roof Over Their Heads event down at the YWCA of Calgary. Each participant is trying to raise $1,000 each by sleeping homeless for the night inside the Y's gym. In 2010, more than 2,700 women and children approached the YWCA of Calgary for help in finding a home. We'll be right back. Welcome back. It used to be the homeless stuck mostly to the downtown core, but that's changed over the years. In 1992, there were just 447 people who were considered homeless on any given night. But as we mentioned earlier, by 2008, that number grew to more than 4,000 people. When business in the Foothills Industrial Park heard that a homeless shelter was going to open up back in 2007, there were a lot of concerns. Winter that year was particularly bitter, and more space was desperately needed to get homeless men and women out of the cold. The shelter was only going to be opened on a temporary basis, but it's still here. At the time, many business owners were afraid there would be break-ins, drug use, fighting. But the shelter instituted monthly meetings to let others in the area know what was going on. And over the years, there have been only a few isolated issues.
Good neighbors, great neighbors. They expect us to call them if there's a problem. They deal with it if there is one. We haven't heard of any, so it's been fantastic.
Bill Marks joins us now live from the Mustard Seed Foothill Shelter. Bill, there was a lot of initial opposition to that shelter.
That's right, Tara. Now with me is Myron Kraus with he's the executive director of the Mustard Seed. Now Myron, when you first announced plans to move a temporary shelter out here, you got a lot of opposition from business owners. There was a lot of people up in arms. Over the time and over the years, those attitudes have changed. That was a lot of work. What did you do?
Well, I think it was simply a case of people being afraid of what they do not know. And so we made sure we were very intentional building a relationship with the community, getting to know the community, and allowing them to get to know us. And so on a monthly basis, we held consultation meetings here at the Mustard Seed. People came in from the community, business owners, and they could ask us questions, and we respond to their concerns. And not only that, but we're intentional about giving back to the community as well. And so we had crews go out to clean up in the community. We held barbecues, and we also connected people here from the shelter who are unemployed with employers who are looking for laborers.
Now that's been over the past few years. How about plans for the future? Going forward, do you foresee this being a permanent fixture out here in the Foothills Industrial Park?
Well, we're really glad to respond to people's needs and emergencies where they're at. But what's really important to us is that we're really helping people move to independent, healthy, permanent living situations. And so we're really focused on moving people out of the shelters into homes of their own and supporting them in that.
Well, thank you very much, Myron. That's Myron Kraus. He is the executive director of the Mustard Seed. Now, officials from the Seed will be going to the city in the next month or two to ask for another extension here. This one is for 5 years. Hopefully, it won't be needed for that long. Tara?
Bill Marks live tonight. Thank you so much. Well, do you think the city is doing enough to end homelessness? You can take our poll at ctvcalgary.ca. Calgary is 3 years into its 10-year plan to end homelessness. It's a massive undertaking, but already there are a lot of success stories. Kevin Green joins us again from downtown Calgary to tell us about one of them. Kevin, some good news.
Yeah, that's right, Tara. We've talked a lot tonight about the 10-year plan to end homelessness and about how difficult it is for a lot of people to find their way off the street and into a home, but there are some success stories, and here's one we really hope becomes a success story. Donnie, you might have remembered him from a little earlier in the show, has been living on the street since 1981. Since the mid-90s, he's been living outdoors almost full-time. A lot of people have been working for a long time to try and find him a place to live. The night I met up with him almost 2.5 weeks ago, he also had a visit from the Downtown Outreach Addictions Partnership. They put him in touch with a housing counselor, and then things started to happen quite quickly. So quickly that earlier this week, we caught up with Donnie right after he moved into his new apartment, and you'll be amazed at the transformation he's gone through just by having a place to call his own.
Well, Adam, this is my place.
How do you like it?
Good? Oh, feels great. I can finally start my life again. Like, I want to start looking for work. I want to find a job. You know, like, I haven't worked in 20 years, and it's so hard to get used to like living in a place, and then I can finally go, I can go home, look at a newspaper. But it feels right now, feels like I got a big thing lifted off my shoulders. A big rock was just lifted off my shoulders. Now it says, now do what you want to do. All the stuff that you thought you can do, but you couldn't do when you're living on the street, now I can do it. I can put an application forms in. Oh, I got my address right here. I got a phone number. That's what makes you feel good, really good. If I have to go to school, which I want to take upgrading to, I want to go back, because I want to at least get my grade 12. I got grade 10, and I come home and I can study. You can't do that on the street. No, there's just no way. My water. Here I can sit back and I can do whatever I have to do at home. Right now I just want to relax a little bit and just feel like a king. A king in my own castle.
There's a lot of work ahead still for Donnie. He gets about $795 from the government, which it says $323 should go to rent and the rest should go to his living expenses, but in reality, $650 of it is going to go to his rent. He'll have under $200 left to buy food, clothing, and bus tickets to go out and look for work. Last year in Calgary, the average monthly rent for a bachelor apartment was $711. Add another $100 to that, and you can see that it becomes pretty expensive for a person to make a go of it these days. In 2009, Alberta raised the minimum wage to $8.80 an hour, but when you factor in utilities and living costs, the city says that you just had to afford that bachelor pad, you'd have to make at least $13.67 an hour. So Tara, you can see, even if you were working full-time at a job, you might still not be able to afford a place to live, but it would seem just raising the minimum wage isn't enough to help keep people off the streets when rent and the cost of living go up every year.
Kevin, thank you for your insight on this issue, and thank you for joining us tonight for our special show on the road.